Every now and again, it's a good idea to look at a deck you made a while ago and go ahead and update it a bit and see what you can do with it. So let's go ahead and do that. One of the earliest challenges I set out for myself when starting this channel was building a WUBRG deck at a budget. At the time, I still had that idea that certain decks would be very hard for me to build, and 5-color decks were kind of right up there in terms of difficult to build but fun to play. So I figured, why not go ahead and revisit one of those earliest decks, because sometimes as you've been making more changes to decks and more cards have released, and just your general ability to build decks gets better, it's a good idea to revisit some of your old projects to see what you could have done better. And in this case, we're going to be making some improvements on my old Omnath Locus of All deck. Omnath Locus of All is a WUBRG commander that gives you the ability to hold onto your unstepped mana even as steps, phases, and turns end. And also, he gives you effectively a Phyrexian Arena effect so that every single turn you get a free extra card from the top of your deck. But if that extra card happens to have 3 mana symbols in its cost, then you can go ahead and not only add that card to your hand, but generate 3 mana of any combination of colors. The game plan of this deck, as with the original, is to funnel that mana into some gigantic spells and interesting plays, and also use that mana as a break in case of emergency whenever things go south. Our primary way of generating lots of mana that we can filter into Omnath is going to be Baldur's Gate, though if you happen to be in a situation where Baldur's Gate cannot get you that mana, the deck has enough of a ramp package to make plenty of mana otherwise. Normally though, Baldur's Gate gives us X mana for every gate we control besides Baldur's Gate, which is a heaping helping of mana, all things considered. In the event that we do not have mana, but we do just have lots of gates to use, Crackling Perimeter will be one of our alternate win conditions, allowing us to tap gates to deal 1 damage to every opponent. But after Crackling Perimeter, we have plenty of big spell payoffs we want to filter this mana into. Inspired Ultimatum can get rid of a problematic card on the board, draw us 5 cards, and also give us 5 life. Cruel Ultimatum can make an opponent sack a creature, discard 3 cards, lose 3 life, and then we get a Reanimate, or not really a Reanimate, putting a creature from our graveyard to our hand, a draw 3, and gaining of 5 life. Both of these cards are fantastic on their own, but when they are copied, they are amazing. Unite the Coalition is another card that is amazing when it is copied, since we can use it to deal 10 damage to any one target. If we have 3 or 4 copies of this on the stack, this can be used to blow up all of our opponents all at once. Though, this also can be used to phase out Omnath, draw us cards, get rid of people's graveyards, blow up artifacts or enchantments, you name it, this card does it all. And speaking of doing it all, we also have Villainous Wealth as one of our big spell payoffs. This card is lovely. When we cast it, we can make an opponent exile the top X cards of their library and then cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them. So, here's the scenario. You have 10 or 20 mana that's floating around with Omnath. Go ahead and spend all of it on Villainous Wealth and grab every single spell from an opponent's library. Copy it a few times to grab every spell from every player's library, either decking them out entirely or simply casting so many spells that you win off of just pure value. And the biggest spell of all we can cast is the Debt to the Deathless. Each opponent loses 2 times X life, where X is the amount of life that we pay into it. Or rather, 2 times X is the amount of mana we pay into it, and then we gain life equal to the life that they lose. So if we pay 5 mana into this, our opponents all burn for 2, since 4 of that mana is being cast on the actual colors of the card. If we happen to spend 10 mana on this, then all of our opponents are burning for 12, and we are gaining 36 life. This card is fantastic on its own, but when it is copied, it does a lot more damage. And speaking of copies, let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to be copying our cards. First of all, in a big mana deck, it's easy to cast Swarm Intelligence. This allows us to copy any of our instant and sorcery spells any amount of times. There is no limit on this. There is a limit, however, on Doubling Visions. Double Vision allows you to copy only the first instant or sorcery that you cast, unlike Swarm Intelligence, which can copy all of your instants and sorceries, but only copy once. Double Visions is much more restrictive. Then we have Teach by Example, Double Cast, and To Inferno, which can all copy our spells on the stack. Well, double cast can't, you have to cast it before the spell, but you know what I mean. And we can use cards like Moriat of the Frost to get extra copies of cards like Swarm Intelligence and Double Vision, so that we have copies of copies of copies. And because Baldur's Gate is such an important card for our deck strategy, let's go ahead and add in a single copy of Necrobloom, since this will allow us to transfer any of our draw abilities into a dredge ability for our lands, allowing us to replace cards in our hand. Also, because we have so much land fetching in this deck, the Necrobloom can even serve as an alternate win condition, swarming the board with all kinds of 2/2 black zombies that can just destroy our opponents outright. Let's also have the final part of the bread and butter of our deck are going to be a series of charms and confluences, much like in the original version, though sculpted a little better this time around. We don't get to have a straightforward removal or draw package in this deck, but we will still have those sections later in the video for cards that only function for one of those jobs. However, Riveteer's Charm allows us to force an opponent to sack a permanent or get rid of 3 cards from our library from the top and play those cards if we want, or get rid of a player's graveyard. Broker's Charm can be used to draw 2 cards, blow up an enchantment, or give a creature 1/0 and make it effectively fight. Maestro's Charm allows us to burn all opponents for 3. This can also deal 5 damage to a creature or a planeswalker, or let us look at the top 5 cards of our library and figure out which one of those we want to keep. This is also a fantastic card to copy, as if we have lots of copies of this on the stack, our opponents are burning for lots and lots of damage. Obscura Charm can blow up a creature with mana value 3 or less. It can return a multicolored permanent with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped, or counter an instant or sorcery spell. Bant Charm can counter any instant spell, blow up an artifact, or put a creature on the bottom of its owner's library. All of these do so much. Esper Charm blows up an enchantment, draws us cards, or makes a player discard 2 cards. Drumreese Charm can counter any spell, or give a creature -2/-2, or give us 5 life. Maestro's Confluence can let us return a monocolored instant or sorcery from our graveyard to our hand, give a creature -3/-3, or goad a creature. Riveteer's Confluence can let us draw a card and lose a life, deal 1 damage to each creature and planeswalker we don't control, or put a land from our graveyard onto the battlefield tapped, letting us reset things like Baldur's Gate if they happen to be killed by our opponents. Abzan Charm can let us draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, or exile a creature with power 3 or greater, or distribute 2 1/1 counters on up to 2 creatures. Sultai Charm can draw us cards, or blow up artifacts or enchantments, or blow up mono-colored creatures. And Teamer Charm can counter spells, make sure that creatures with power 3 or less can't block this turn, or give a creature 1/1 and make it fight. God, I hate talking about charms almost as much as I hate talking about planeswalkers. There's so much text on them, it feels like I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But let's go ahead and quickly talk about drawing cards in this deck, because we have a very small, dedicated draw package for this deck that's a little different than it was in the original. So let's go ahead and get into that. We only have 4 cards to talk about here, so this should be nice and quick. The only cards from the original that we're keeping are Eureka Moment and Nine Fingers Keen. Eureka Moment lets us draw 2 cards and drop a land on the battlefield, and Nine Fingers Keen lets us have this fantastic ability where if it deals combat damage to a player, we look at the top 9 cards of our library, drop a gate down, and then put all the other cards in our hand if we happen to already have 9 gates. The new additions to the deck are Reckless Scholar, a better version of the original looter that was in the deck, letting us draw cards and discard cards to sculpt better hands, and Guild Summit, allowing us to draw lots of cards based on our gates. Between these and the top deck manipulation we got earlier in the core section of the deck and the extra draw that Omnath does, we should be able to dig through our deck quite nicely. And remember, we also have those charms that can be used to draw through our deck as well. That said, let's go ahead and talk about removing our opponent's pieces, because we had a lot of removal in the charm section, but we still have some dedicated removal we got to talk about. We are going to be running 10 dedicated removal pieces in this deck, cards that only really serve to blow up things or have maybe 1 extra function. In the 1 extra function section, we have Mana Cannons. The card's fantastic because not only will it deal X damage to any target whenever we cast a multicolored spell, which our deck is like 90% made of, but since that can hit any target, this works as both removal and a burn spell to kill our opponents. It's also a fantastic card to clone with Moriat of the Frost. Mardu Charm can deal 4 damage to a creature, give us a couple of tokens, or make an opponent reveal their hand to get rid of a card from it. Now we can also use Jeskai Charm to deal 4 damage to an opponent's Planeswalker, or put a card on top of its owner's library, or give all of our creatures 1/1 and lifelink until end of turn. This combined with Necrobloom can do lots of damage, since we can make all those 2/2 tokens get huge. Endless Detour can throw any spell or non-land permanent on the top or bottom of their library. Grixis Charm can be used to make a creature get -4/-4, or return a permanent to its owner's hands to disrupt any number of spells. Jund Charm can remove a player's graveyard from the game, or deal 2 damage to every creature on the board, or put 2/1 counters on a single creature. This is a fantastic pseudo board wipe, especially when copied. Crackling Doom can deal 2 damage to every opponent and make them sacrifice a creature each, as long as they are the creatures that have the most power on their board. And Naya Charm can be used to return a creature from a graveyard to its owner's hand, great for us. Deal 3 damage to a target creature, great for hitting our opponents, or tap all creatures a player controls to disrupt their combat phase. We are also running 2 dedicated board wipes in Iridian Maelstrom and Gates Ablaze. Gates Ablaze deals X damage to every creature where X is the number of gates we control, and the Maelstrom will blow up everything that is not Omnath. Between our multifunction charms and these dedicated removal cards, we should be able to disrupt our opponents for many turns to come as we assemble the big mana combos. But we do need lots of mana in order to do any of that, so let's go ahead and talk about our dedicated mana package. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we are a gate that relies on cards, or a deck that relies on cards like Baldur's Gate, so let's go ahead and have lots of gate fetch in here. Open the Gates District Guide, Sylvan Scrying, and Gatekeeper Vine can all grab any gate from our deck and put them into our hand, while Circuitous Roots, Explore the Underdark, and Hour of Promise can be used to grab 2 gates and throw them on the battlefield, with Navigation Orb grabbing 2 gates and putting 1 on the battlefield and 1 in our hand. Now please note, one of our gates is Gond Gate, and if Gond Gate is on our battlefield, then all of our gates enter untapped. So all of our ramp cards that put 2 gates on the battlefield tapped, we get to ignore the tapping clause for those gates now. This is another card that people are going to try to remove, so make sure to get this card back on the battlefield ASAP, and always make sure it is the first gate that you pull out with this deck. The rest of our ramp spells are going to be Cormella Glamour Thief. She allows us to get Grixis mana and can also get us instant and sorceries back from our grave if she dies. We can untap our lands a lot using Krozen Restorer, Blossom Dryad, and Green Side Watcher. Each of these can untap our Baldur's Gate so that we get lots and lots of mana with it. Important Tracker can also do this, but it also has a secondary ability where it can do infinitely fun things with battles, but we are ignoring that entirely in this deck. Clifftide Lookout can grab any land from the top of our deck and immediately throw it on the battlefield. Growth Spiral and Explore let us draw a card and play an additional land that turn. Honored Heirloom can get rid of cards in a player's graveyard whenever we need, while also being an Omni-Mana Rock. And Sage of the Maze allows us to get 2 mana in any combination of colors and gives us a fun alternate win con along with Necrobloom, where we get lots of citizens on the board that are massive, and we can tap gates in order to untap the Sage of the Maze. Our land base is largely unchanged from the original, but there are some new releases that have smoothed things out for us a bit. We are running 2 of every basic land, and our fetching lands are a bit different this time around. We have the Token Evolving Wilds, but we are also running 1 of every landscape card from Modern Horizons 3 that can get us green mana, as green is the most important mana type for us to have in a Gates deck, or any big mana deck for that matter. After that, we are running just lots of gates. We are running 1 of every guild gate, and after the guild gates, we have a Gateway Plaza, which is not a great land, but it says gate, which is good enough for us. A Basilisk Gate to give us an alternate win con of punching opponents for big damage with our commander. All of the gates from Baldur's Gate, as well as the aforementioned Gond and Baldur's Gate, which allow us our deck's primary methods of winning the game. And we have a couple of Omni lands like Exotic Orchard and Command Tower to give us easy access to Wooburg in case we need it. And that's really it for the deck. It's only about 20 or 30 cards off from the original build, but that's kind of the idea of updating a deck, is you still want the base idea of the deck to be unchanged. Now that we've talked about the changes though, let's go ahead and update this deck list with one more thing that was not in the original, and that is, of course, how to actually play the damn thing. So let's go ahead and go over keepable hands before we get into anything else. Ideally, you will have some form of gate fetch in your opening hand or the Gond gate in the opening hand. You really could get away with just a handful of draw cards and ramp cards too, as all that really matters is getting Omnath out quickly. But in this test, we actually managed to get a Gatecreeper Vine and a Navigation Orb very, very quickly. So we actually get to do some fun stuff. We open up our turn drawing a Krosan Restorer, and let's go ahead and just drop a Azorius Guildgate on the battlefield tapped. Actually, no, not the Guildgate. No, let's be smart about this. Let's play the Evolving Wilds, and we're just going to go ahead and crack it and immediately go grab a black land? Yeah, we'll get some black out of our deck right now. Let's go ahead and grab that Swamp. Because cards like Cruel Ultimatum do require multiple black pips, we'll get that out early. Moving into turn 2, we go ahead and play a Forest down, tap 3, play the Gatecreeper Vine, and we get to go into our library and grab our Gond Gate, which we will be able to play next turn. We move into turn 3, let's play the Gond Gate, tap 1, 2, 3, Navigation Orb is out, and that'll be it for the turn. Now that we're in turn 4, we are going to play Gateway Plaza untapped by tapping a forest, and we're going to tap 2 to crack our Navigation Orb, and we are going to go into our library and we are going to go grab Baldur's Gate, and based on what's in our hand, we are going to want a Rakdos Guildgate as well. So let's go ahead and get those out. The Baldur's Gate comes onto the battlefield untapped thanks to our Gateway Plaza, and we are going to go ahead and end our turn there. We move into turn 5. Let's play the Rakdos Guildgate. And where we are sitting right now, we can go ahead and play Omnath. So we're going to pay 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do it that way, so I'm actually smart. Play the Honored Heirloom, and then tap 1, 2, 3, 4, and use 2 of our life to get Omnath on the board. Now that our Big Jelly Bean is out, we get to go to the subsequent turn 6, show our opponents this Endless Detour, and that'll generate 3 mana for us. 3 mana that we are going to be able to use for Maestro's Confluence to make sure our opponents are set back, since we've had a bit of a slow start. We can defend our Omnath with Obscura Charm and Temur Charm, so we're going to go ahead and play this Exotic Orchard, and we have, gate-wise, 1, 2, 3, 4... Actually, not the Exotic Orchard. We're going to play the Azorius Guildgate, so that we have 5 gates on the board. We have the 3 mana we need from Maestro's Confluence, so we're going to pay 1, 2... and Baldur's Gate to generate 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. We are going to use all of that to play Maestro's Confluence real quick, and we are going to make sure that our opponents lose a bunch of creatures. That done, let's look at what we have available mana-wise still. We have 1 extra mana from the Omnath, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and give ourselves this treasure token here just to denote how much mana we have with Omnath. So we have 1 free mana with Omnath. We can go ahead and get rid of that 1 mana and tap 1, 2, and let's get the Krosan Restorer on the board. This way we can use Gateway Plaza, Gond Gate, and Azorius Guildgate to defend our commander in case something bad happens to him. And let's assume that our opponents kind of see the writing on the walls and they see that they need to get rid of our commander. So we are going to go ahead and use Obscura Charm to protect our commander, generating all the mana we need thanks to the mana we have set up. Now we move into the next turn, and we have a Naya Charm here, and our top deck, we get Citadel Gate thanks to Omnath. Let's go ahead and play the Citadel Gate down, and it doesn't matter what color we are grabbing with the Citadel Gate. We are going to use Temur Charm to defend our commander in case something goes south. I think at this point what we do is we just pass to our opponent's turn, assume that we have to use the Temur Charm to defend our commander, and assume that at the exact same time, we need to do something that requires us to tap this Naya Charm. Let's go ahead and spend both of those, leaving us with only the option to generate 5 mana with Baldur's Gate and hold on to that mana. And we're going to use Krosan Restorer to tap and untap Azorius Guildgate, so we have 6 mana available thanks to Omnath. Let's go ahead and get all that mana over there. Move into turn 8. We get a Void Rend, and we get to show our opponents this Maestro's Charm, which we can use to dig for some answers to our current situation, which is the fact that we have all of our setup. We don't necessarily have a way to win with our setup. So, look at the top 5 cards of our library, put one of those cards in our hand and the rest into our graveyard. We'll use 1 mana from Omnath because it's only black mana, and we need blue and red. So, boom, there is blue, there's the red. Let's go ahead and use the Gateway Plaza for the blue, and bam, there's Maestro's Charm. Let's look at the top cards of our deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is a win con right there with Sage of the Maze. Let's go ahead and put that in our hand. That is a perfect find since we can use that to get to one of our deck's win conditions. Now, as we are sitting here, we need to use the Baldur's Gate. Yes, we have to use the Baldur's Gate for this. 1, 2, 3. We're going to generate a bunch of green mana. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green mana. And we are going to use 3 of that to play the Sage of the Maze and end our turn. Let's assume that our opponent plays some important cards, and we are going to have to blow up a permanent with Void Rend to protect ourselves. That is going to cause us to spend 2 mana. We're going to tap the Corrosion Restorer to get the Gateway Plaza up. Not the Gateway Plaza, the Baldur's Gate up, and we're going to tap the Baldur's Gate with our 2 extra mana in order to generate 5 mana here. So now we have 12 mana thanks to Omnath, 2 that we saved up from the last turn, 5 from this untap step, and we are in an okay spot. We draw Selesnya Guildgate, and we show our opponents a Sultai Charm, which we can use to draw 2 and discard 1. So let's play the Selesnya Guildgate. And let's go ahead and use 1 of our black mana and a blue mana from the Azorius Guildgate, as well as a green mana from here. Let's do the Sultai Charm to draw 2 cards and discard a card. That means we can use 1, 2, 3 mana and the Selesnya Guildgate's mana in order to play Circuitous Route, to go into our library and get 2 gates and put them immediately onto the battlefield. For this one, I am picking the Simic Guildgate and the Basilisk Gate, as the Basilisk Gate can be used to hurt one of our opponents quite a lot if we choose. So now where we are sitting is we have this Mardu Charm, which can be used to get rid of a problematic creature on a board, and an Endless Detour, which can also be used in case our opponent casts something that we don't like. So looking at where we're at right now, our next steps are going to be to use Sage of the Maze to animate this swamp. And this swamp becomes a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a 9/9 swamp. A very, very powerful swamp. We can tap the Citadel Gate to untap him, tap this Rakdos Guildgate in order to create this bigger Basilisk Gate, and we can do this a handful of times in order to get a bunch of creatures on the board. Not the Basilisk Gate, though, because that has Summoning Sickness. So now we have these creatures on the board ready to go. We can use the Corrosion Restorer to untap this forest, and let's go ahead and tap the Baldur's Gate to animate that as well. So now we have, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are 9/9 creatures. We are going to be swinging these at our opponents for a lot of damage. 9 times 4. We are swinging for 36 damage on an opponent. And we can use 1 more mana to filter up for Omnath, so we have 9 mana in reserve at all times. We don't have access to Endless Detour now because we did that big swing, but let's assume we just decided to eliminate an opponent who was problematic. We move into the next turn, and we get to reveal to our opponents this Esper Charm, which will generate 3 mana for us. We're going to generate that as 3 blue mana so that we can use 1 white and 1 black from our stockpile in order to draw 2 more cards. That gives us a Heap Gate we can play, and we can use 1 of our mana to play Greenside Watcher. And we're in a fantastic spot right now because we can do this same animation strategy we did last time, but make these all 10/10s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We now have 60 damage on the battlefield because we reanimated all of our lands again, and we used the Sage of the Mage's ability to make a land become a big citizen, and just do this over and over and over. Oh, right, hold on. Until end of turn, it gains haste. I could have used the Basilisk Gate last turn. I'm dumb. Anyway, yeah, there's 60 damage. Go ahead and take 60 damage right now. Boom. These are all hitting you over and over and over again. And if for some reason we move into the next turn, we get to show our opponents this Black Dragon Gate, which we're going to play down. We're going to move all these lands down here because our final coup de grace, in the event that we were not able to win the game by punching our opponents over and over again, we'll be tapping Baldur's Gate to generate 10 mana, because we're going to play the land we just drew. Generate 10 mana with the Baldur's Gate, untap the Baldur's Gate with the Crowswind Restorer, tap it to generate 10 more mana, untap it with the Greenside Watcher, tap it to generate 10 more mana, meaning we have 37 mana available to be used, and we're going to tap 1, 2, 3, 4, and cast Debt to the Deathless with 4 of that mana being used, 1, 2, 3, 4, for the casting cost. That means we have 33 into the X. Our opponents are burning for 66 damage each, and we are gaining all of the damage we dealt to them as life right now. And if for some reason somebody survived that, which I doubt they did, we're just going to use Sage of the Maze to animate this Simic Guild Gate and punch somebody in the schnoz with that to go ahead and end their game as well, as our Simic Guild Gate is now punching for 11. The name of the game is getting lots of mana and using it to punch your opponents incredibly hard. That's it. It's very simple. The only complicated part is the fact that so many of these cards have lots of different abilities because they are all charms or confluences. And that does it for how to play the deck. All that's left is to talk about what you would do if you wanted to upgrade the deck a little further. So let's go ahead and get into that and close things out. The first thing I would be looking for when upgrading this deck is to give it a little more oomph in its mana. Talon Gates of Madara gives us a fantastic way to protect our commander while also having an extra gate available. Thran Portal is good in the early game and gives us yet another gate to stack onto all of our other gates. We can even make sure that we have more access to gate synergies with a Plaza of Harmony, as it can give us 1 mana of any kind that our gates can produce. Then we can give ourselves some extra value by throwing in a Maelstrom Nexus, which gives all of our spells Cascade, a 2-headed Tyrant, which can be used to make sure that we have lots of draw power throughout the game, and it even puts our opponents on a clock. Whirlwind of Thought gives us even more draw every time we cast one of our deck's many non-creature spells, and we can weave advantage and mana acceleration in with a card like Planar Genesis. Tome of the Guild Pact also does the same thing, giving us a small ramp spell that can also allow us to draw anytime we cast any of our multicolored cards. We can add in an extra board wipe with Dune Blast if you can find space for it and you find something that you do not like in this version of the list, as it blows up everything besides Omnath. Kess Dissident Mage allows us to recast our important spells from the graveyard, and then we have 2 major additions to the deck. One would be a Seedborn Muse, giving you access to free untaps at the beginning of every single player's turn, and an Archmage's Charm, which gives you access to counterspell, draw power, and also the ability to steal people's soul rings. All in all, this deck does have a bit of a learning curve associated with it, so I hope you are willing to stick around for what the deck asks of you. It wants you to have highly modal cards and play them at a decent click so you are not monopolizing the time of everybody around you. But if you can get past that, the deck is incredibly versatile, and as you upgrade the deck becomes even more powerful and versatile as you go. That all said, I hope you guys did enjoy this update on the original list, and hopefully if you did enjoy it, then you'll let me know in the comment section below, or even go support me on Patreon or something, who knows. That said, thank you all for watching my video. I appreciate you all being here, and as I update older decks, hopefully those of you who've been around for a while will appreciate the new coat of paint on lots of these older designs. That said, thank you for watching so much, and as always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie-chan, Agamotto, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that. Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fire Shard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.